Good day, friends. So, in this part 3 of Geeta Rahasya, we will continue to listen to the second half of author Lokmanya Tilak's preface in this book. From what has been stated above, my readers will get an idea as to the general trend of the exposition contained in the Geeta Rahasya. From the reference to the opinions of the earlier commentators on the Gita made in the beginning of the third chapter of the Shankar Bhashya on the Gita, it would appear that these commentaries were in favor of Karma Yoga or the right action. These commentaries are not now available. Therefore, there is no reason why this book of mine should not be called the first comparative exposition of the Gita in support of the right action. The meanings of some stanzas given in this book are different from those given in the present commentaries, and I have also had to deal with many other subjects which have nowhere been fully explained in the Marathi language. I have attempted to explain these subjects and the arguments in support of such explanation succinctly, but as clear and easily intelligible a manner as possible, but in as clear and easily intelligible a manner as possible, and notwithstanding repetition, I have purposely given in many places synonyms for various words, of which the meanings have not yet become current or commonly known in the Marathi language. Side by side with these words, and I have also clearly shown in different places the most salient theorems, in these subjects by separating them from the exposition itself. Yet, it is always difficult to discuss scientific and difficult subjects in a few words, and the Marathi terminology of these subjects is also not yet definite. I am therefore alive to the fact that in this my new way of exposition, there may possibly creep in difficulty, unintelligibleness, or incompleteness as a result of mental confusion, inadvertence, or for some other reasons. But the Bhagavad Gita is not something unknown to my readers. The Gita is a book which is daily recited by many. And there are also many who have studied or who are studying it scientifically. I have therefore to request such authoritative persons that if this book comes to their hands and they come across any flaws in it of the nature mentioned above, they will please draw my attention to them so that I will consider the suggestions and will also make the necessary corrections if there is any occasion to bring out a second edition of this book. Some persons are likely to gather the impression that I have a particular system or sampradaya of mine own, and that I have explained the Gita in a special way in support of that system. I must therefore make it clear here that the Geeta Rahasya has not been written with reference to any particular person or any particular system. I have put forward the clear meaning of the Sanskrit stanzas in the Gita according to my understanding. If, as a result of this straightforward translation, and as Sanskrit is now widely understood, many people will easily see whether or not my translation is straightforward. My exposition assumes a doctrine supporting character. Then such character is of the Gita and not mine. As the clear request of Arjuna to the blessed Lord was, do not confuse me by placing before me several courses of conduct, but point out to me definitely only one course, which is the proper course. Uh, this reference is in Gita chapter 3, stanza 2, and Gita chapter 5, stanza 17. It is clear that the Gita must be in support of one particular opinion, as referred to in Gita chapter 3, stanza 31. And I have set out to explain what that opinion is by impartially interpreting the original Gita. I have not preconceived a doctrine first and then attempted to stretch the meaning of the Gita because the Gita will not fit in with that doctrine. In short, my attempt is to popularize the true inner import of the Gita with the devotees of the Gita to whatever doctrine such import may pertain. And I have come forward to make, so to say, such a sacrifice of knowledge, or in the local language, Jnana Yajna, as is referred to by the blessed Lord at the end of the Gita. And I am sanguine that my countrymen and co-religionists will willingly give me this charitable offering of information in order to make my attempt flawless. I have explained at length in the Geeta Rahasya the reasons for the difference between the esoteric import of the Gita, according to me, and that propounded by ancient commentators. But though there may be such a difference of opinion as to the teaching of the Gita, yet, as I have always made use more or less of the various commentaries or criticisms on the Gita, as also of the former or modern Prakrut translations of the Gita, as occasion arose in writing the present book, I must here say that I am deeply indebted to them. I must likewise express my gratitude towards those Western philosophers to the theorems mentioned in whose works I have now and then referred. As it is doubtful whether it would have been possible for me to write this book without the help of all those works I have quoted in the beginning of this introduction, the following words of Sant Tukaram. I am only repeating the stale words uttered by saints. That a work like the Gita, which propounds knowledge untouched by time, that is, equally true at all times, should, according to changing times, give fresh inspiration to human beings is not a matter of surprise, because that is the characteristic feature of such universal works. But the labor spent on such works by ancient scholars is not, on that account, wasted. This same argument applies to the translations of the Gita into English, German, and other languages made by Western scholars. Though these translations are based primarily on the ancient commentaries on the Gita, some Western scholars have also started interpreting the Gita independently. But these expositions of the Western scholars are to a certain extent incomplete and in some places undoubtedly misleading and wrong. Whether because they have not properly understood the principle of the true Karma Yoga or the history of Vedic religious systems, or because they have principally inclined towards the external examination of the matter only, or for some other similar reason. There is no occasion to consider or examine here in detail those works of Western scholars on the Gita. In the appendices to this book, I have stated what I have to say regarding the important questions raised by them. Nevertheless, I must, in this preface, refer to some writings in English on the Gita which I have recently come across. One such writing is that of Mr. Brooks. Mr. Brooks is a theosophist, and he has maintained in his book on the Gita that the Bhagavad Gita is in favor of action or Karma Yoga, and he has expressed the same opinion in his lectures. The second thesis is by Mr. S. Radhakrishnan of Madras, which has appeared in the form of small essay in the International Ethical Quarterly of July 1911, published in America. In this work, the similarity between the Gita and Kant on questions of ethics and freedom of will has been shown. In my opinion, this similarity is even more comprehensive than has been shown in this essay, and the arguments of Green on the question of ethics are even more consistent with the Gita than those of Kant. But as both these questions have been dealt with by me in this book, I shall not repeat the same matter here. Pandit Sitanath Tattvabhushana has also recently published a book in English called Krishna and the Gita, which contains the 12 lectures delivered by that scholar on the Gita. But anyone who reads those books will be sure to notice that there is a great deal of difference between the arguments contained in these books or in the book of Brooks and those contained in these books in the book of Brooks and those advanced in mine. But these writings show that my ideas about the Gita are not newfangled. And as these works are a propitious sign that people are paying more and more attention to the doctrine of right action or Karma Yoga, In the Gita, I am taking this opportunity of congratulating these modern writers. It is true that this work was completed in the Mandale jail, but it had been written with a lead pencil and it contained corrections and deletions in many places. So, when it had been returned to me after inspection by government, it was necessary to make a fair copy of it for printing. And if I myself had to do that work, who knows how many months more would have passed before the work was published. But Messrs. Vaman Gopal Joshi, Narayan Krishna Gopte, Ramakrishna Dattatreya Paradkar, Ramakrishna Sadashiv Pimputkar, Appaji Vishnu Kulkarni, and other gentlemen have willingly rendered assistance in this matter and quickly finished the work, for which I am grateful to them. Similarly, Mr. Krishnaji Prabhakar Khadilkar and especially Vedashastra Sampanna Dikshit Kashinath Vedashastra Sampanna Dikshit Kashinath Shastri Lele specially came here from Bombay and took the trouble of reading the manuscript and made many useful and critical suggestions for which I am grateful to them. The reader, however, must not forget that the responsibility of the opinions expressed in this book is mine. In this way, the book was got ready for printing, but there was the risk of shortage of paper on account of the war. This difficulty was overcome by the timely supply of paper, which was good, in my opinion, by Messrs. D. Padamji and Sons, proprietors of the Swadeshi paper mills in Bombay. And it became possible to publish a book on the Gita on good Indian paper. Yet, as the book was found to be larger than estimated, while the printing was in progress, there was again shortage of paper. And if that deficit had not been met by the proprietor of the Ray paper mills, Pune, my readers would have had to wait for a few months more for the publication of the book. Therefore, not only I, but also my readers must feel grateful to the proprietors of these two mills. The task of correcting proofs still remain. This was undertaken by Messrs. Ramakrishna Dattatreya Paradkar, Ramakrishna Sadashiv Pimputkar, and Hari Raghunath Bhagwat. But of these, Mr. Hari Raghunath Bhagwat was alone attending to the work of verifying the references to other books made in different places and of pointing out to me such defects as had remained. Needless to say, without the assistance of all these people, it would have been impossible for me to publish this book so soon. I therefore take this opportunity of sincerely thanking all these people. Finally, I must express my thanks to the owner of the Chitrashala Press, who undertook to publish this book carefully and as early as possible, and who has carried out his undertaking. Just as the assistance of many persons is necessary before the grain is turned into food for the eater, though there may be a harvest in the field, so also I may safely say is the case with writers. At any rate, that was the case with me too. And therefore, I once more sincerely thank all those persons who have helped me, whether or not I have specifically mentioned their names in the above list, and I end this preface. The preface is over. Now, though I feel unhappy at the idea that subject in thinking on which I have spent many years and the constant company of and meditation over which has brought so much satisfaction to my mind and happiness into my heart is now going to leave my hands in the shape of a book. Yet, as these thoughts have come into my mind for the sole purpose of being handed down to coming generations with interest, or at any rate, just as they are, I am placing this philosopher's stone in the shape of Rajaguhya, meaning the kind of mysticisms of the Vedic religion, into the hands of my promising readers, uttering the canon or mantra. Uttishtha Jagrata. That means arise, awake, and understand these blessings conferred by the blessed Lord, and with feelings of affection. In this, or so to say, mysticism, lies the entire essence of right and wrong action, and the blessed Lord Himself has confidently given us the assurance that the observance of this religion, even to a small extent, delivers a person from great difficulties. What more can anybody want? Keep in mind the universal rule that nothing happens unless something is done, and devote yourselves to desireless action. That's all. The Gita was not preached earlier. The Gita was not preached either as a pastime for persons tired out after living a worldly life in the pursuit of selfish motives, nor as a preparatory lesson for living such worldly life, but in order to give philosophical advice as to how one should live his worldly life with an eye to release, or in local language, moksha, and as to the true duty of human beings in worldly life. My last prayer to everyone, therefore, is that one should not fail to thoroughly understand this ancient science of the life of a householder or of worldly life as early as possible in one's life. So, friends, this preface was written by Lokmanya Bal Gangadhar Tilak, and as he has given the reference of Shaka year 1837, to which if you add 79 years, you get to the usual calendar that internationally we utilize. So this was in Pune, Adhik Vaishakh month, Marathi month. So in the next part, we will continue with the next parts of the book.